Hello friends, welcome to your channel ABC Health. I'm your host and your friend Nishan, welcoming you to the new episode. This time I'm going to talk to you about the importance of healthy eating, which I think is an art as well as a science. It's rightly said that what you eat and the way you eat is a real reflection of the respect that you have for yourself. So it's really important that we give due diligence to the way we eat and how we eat and what we eat. When I was a kid, my granddad always used to advise me on, things like you should chew your food properly, you should eat slowly, you should sit down and eat, make sure that you eat regularly at regular intervals, and make a routine of the way that you eat food. And at that time, I never used to realize what was the importance of that. Never did I realize that when I'll grow up and start researching and reading about all of this stuff, that I'll come to know about the deep impact that it has on our health and on our lives. The first thing that is important to talk is how much to eat. Now, the answer to this really depends on each individual. Everyone's different. Different people have got different height, different weight, different ratio of body fat to muscle, and people with different ages, and males versus females. Broadly, in general, most males will require about 2,000 to 2,400 calories. That's kind of almost 80% of the male population, and the females would typically need roughly about 200 to 300 calories less, which is around about 1,700 to 2,000 calories or 2,100 calories a day. But often we overestimate the amount of calories that our body needs or uses, because all of these calculations are based on an assumption that we do a lot of physical exercise, which a lot of us do not. So most of the time we have sedentary life, and we're not as active as we should ideally be. So that typically means that the actual amount of energy that we need in a body is probably about 10 to 20% lesser than this. The bigger problem though is that when we eat, we don't look at calories in the food. Like, you can't look at a food and say how many calories it has. It's really hard to do that unless they are processed foods. So the challenge then is, how do we know how much should we eat? It's important then that we now move to the art of eating, because if you know how much to eat by a judgment, then that would help a lot. So the first thing I would recommend is, and something that I do personally, is make sure that you eat smaller portions. So when I say smaller portions, you should try and eat in smaller plates. Whether it's your breakfast, lunch or dinner, you should try and use smaller spoons, smaller serving spoons, and at the same time, make sure that you eat at the same time each and every day, because the moment you skip your meals or there's a bit of a lag time, your body feels in need of something to eat, and then all of a sudden you sort of start eating a lot more than you would have normally had. So make sure you have a routine and follow that routine each and every day. The third important point is, if you're eating snacks, fruits or nuts, which are very healthy, and I must recommend that, make sure that you put them in a plate rather than just eating them with hand, because often you just don't know how much you have eaten unless you see that in a plate. Apart from that, it's also important that you eat filling foods first up. So if you have vegetables, salads, lentils and beans and those sort of things, try and eat them before you eat any of the carbs or rice or bread or anything like that, because that will make sure that you tend to eat a little bit lesser. The other thing is about protein. So make sure that you have a lot of protein earlier on in the day, so that you pack your body with enough protein. Protein is gives you a lot of fulfillment in terms of feeling full. You feel less hungry. So things like low-fat yogurt, low-fat milk, low-fat cheese, eggs, nuts. These sort of things are typically very, very good for having earlier on in breakfast. Now this is important because, I will tell you what I do. I normally have 3 full meals in the day, which is typically a breakfast, a lunch and a dinner. And in between I'll pack 2 or 3 light snacks, just to make sure that I don't overeat during my main meals. Now this is very important because the more frequently you eat, there is something called the thermic effect of food, which means your body actually burns calories when digesting food. So the more often you eat, the more calories your body burns in order to digest that food. At the same time, if you're eating smaller meals and more often, then you're only utilizing calories that you need for that bit of time rather than gorging on a lot of calories that your body will not need at that point in time, which eventually leads to storage inside the body. So think about your body like a pantry. You keep filling it and removing stuff from that. But when you put in more stuff and don't use that stuff, then the pantry becomes overfilled and starts filling at some point in time, which is exactly what happens to your body as well. Another important consideration is when to eat. Now, the answer to that is a very simple one. You need to eat when your body actually needs food. When I say that, it means that when your body is active or more active. So typically you need to align your meals at a time where your body uses that energy as soon as you eat it, and that gets consumed. And make sure that you don't eat at a time where after eating you are inactive, so that the excess amount of energy just is unused and gets stored as fat by the body. So this also helps you avoid overeating, because if you eat when your body needs it, then that's when you utilize all of the energy that you have taken in. It's also very important that during the day you give your body a bit of rest in terms of when you're not eating anything. So typically that should be at least 12 to 14 hours in a day when you're not eating. Now this might seem really hard for you. I'll tell you what I do. I would have my breakfast at 9 in the morning, which will be a really heavy breakfast. So I'll try and pack in as much as protein as I can, eat good healthy carbs, a bit of nuts, fruits. After that I'll have a light snack like a light fruit, maybe an apple or a banana. Just between lunch, so that I'm not overeating during lunchtime. I'll have my lunch around between 12 to 12:30 every day, and I'll have it sort of medium to light with a bit of salads and mix of vegetables and lentils. I'll have a small evening snack, which will be typically around 4:30 with a bit of tea. Typically nuts, sometimes fruits or cucumber or carrot or something like that. And then I make sure that I have my dinner before 6. For some of you it might be hard. You can probably stretch it to 7. But it's important that when you have your dinner, you are awake at least 2 to 3 hours after dinner, and try and be a bit more active after dinner as well, because once you have your dinner, your body goes into slow metabolism and you're just not using all of that energy, which is when exactly your body starts putting more fat on. So make sure that you're active around these times. Breakfast is at 9 is probably a good time, because your body needs that energy for the rest of the day. And dinner having early also makes a lot of sense, because you're not going to use all that energy when you're sleeping at night. The other advantage of this is, assuming that you sleep 8 hours in a day, if you have your last meal, let's say at 6 or 6:30 or 7, let's say, and then you sleep at whatever 9 or 10, you will get 8 hours of sleep out of those 12 hours that you are fasting. So you don't need to stretch your body without food for a long time. You just need to make sure that the early morning hours you can sort of restrict not eating, and probably only eat at 9, so that 12-hour duration passes. And do remember that every time you eat, before eating, especially your major meals, have a little bit of water. So the first thing is, we need to eat very slowly. Why? Because this is the way our body digests and assimilates food. When we eat, our body releases proteins and enzymes that help in the digestion and the absorption of those nutrients, including calories and glucose and all of the other nutrients. If we eat very quickly, we put in a lot of food all of a sudden in our tummy. That does not give our body enough time to react and release those enzymes so that they are able to signal to our brain that our tummy is full. And before that happens, we have already consumed a lot of food. The other thing is, we need to chew the food very nicely. So as much as you can, particularly solid food, has to be chewed, and try to make it very liquidish so that it's absorbed well. And if it's partially digested in the upper digestive tract, it makes very easy for the body to assimilate food, and you don't need to eat a lot, because you are digesting all of the ones that you're eating. So even if you eat small quantities, you'll be able to get enough energy from that. It's really important to enjoy the food that you're eating. So things like smell of the food, the taste of the food, the flavor of the food, these are things that are very important in life. Make sure that every time you sit and eat. It's always good to sit with a family and have food on the dinner table together or the lunch table together. Eat with other people so that you can enjoy the whole process of eating. So friends, with this, I hope that I have given you some idea as to why we say that healthy eating is a science and an art. So I've given you some ideas what's the science behind healthy eating, and I've given you some tips that will help you develop that art of healthy eating. If you have enjoyed watching this video, do click on the like and subscribe on my channel ABC Health. And also don't forget to share this with your family and friends and near and dear ones who could benefit out of this as well.